Welcome to the Arizona Living Group channel. Today we're going to answer one of the most common questions that we get, which is how much is homeowners insurance in Phoenix, or how much is homeowners insurance in Arizona? A lot of people coming from pretty pricey areas for insurance are really concerned about what they're looking at for that bill. And when you are moving to a new area, these are important questions to ask. So today we have Zach Meredith with the Meredith Insurance Agency, and he is going to answer this question. We're going to go over some of the real life situations that we are seeing with what people are paying for insurance, and have a little chat. So stay tuned for today's video. We will be right back.
Hi, I'm Kelley Norton, your AZ Realty lady at eXp Realty. Count on me for all things Arizona real estate.
All right, so as promised, we are going to talk about homeowners insurance today. So welcome, Zach. We appreciate you being here. Absolutely. All right, so a lot of our clients, we have retirees, people that are moving here or relocating from different areas of the valley, and that big concern they have about homeowners insurance is real.
Yes.
A lot of people, they're dropped from insurance in other areas, or they've seen like a 5 times increase in other states, and so they are extremely concerned about insurance, especially for our folks that are retirees and on a fixed income. They can no longer afford to live in areas like Florida or coastal areas, or areas that have higher fire risks, like in California.
Yes.
A lot of people are really experiencing this. So when we have people call, I know a lot of our folks want to know, well, what is the cost for homeowners insurance in Arizona? There's a lot of variables there.
Yes, a lot of variables.
Yes. So why don't we first talk about what those variables are that kind of weigh into the different pricing that you might get for insurance?
So in Arizona, we have 2 main perils that we really look at. One, it's going to be anything for roof damage like wind and hail that causes that, and then water loss. Surprisingly, in Arizona, we have a lot of water loss. So the older the home, the higher the risk you are. The newer the home, obviously, the less risk you are. Certain areas of the state, you have a little more risk for damage or fire or anything like that, or flood. So those areas will be a little more. It's hard to tell typically until you get a zip code. Right. Most of the areas you should see on a home 15 to 20 years old around that $2,500 range. If it's a newer home, obviously it's gonna be a lot cheaper. I've seen new builds right now, reconstruction costs around the 700s, coming in about $500 to $600. Now that is gonna be the first 5 or 6 years, and then it'll slowly creep up from there. But on average, you should see around $2,500 unless you live in a higher risk area.
Right. And like you said, if you buy a new construction home, then several years later, then, just expect that it's going to go up from there. Yeah. So kind of budget that long term. Now, you mentioned a couple of things that I want to kind of circle back to, that, hazards or risks with insurance in Arizona. So the reason why there's, wind damage, roof damage. We've had a hailstorm, was that 2011 big storm that we had out here, and we had hail that we never really had here before. It did a lot of damage on air conditionings, roofs, and it was actually a winter storm that we had. It wasn't one of our typical monsoon wind, rain damage type storms that we get during the summer months, where you see that like June to August time frame for the monsoons. That's kind of where we get a lot of the floods, we get a lot of the wind damage that you'll have that he's kind of mentioning. Now, when you talk about, you were saying a lot of water claims, are you talking about water claims inside the home, like somebody leaves the dishwasher on when they leave and then they flood the inside of their house, or they leave their washing machine on? Take note of these things, because I always am telling people, hey, don't leave your washing machine running when you're not home. Don't leave your dishwasher running. Or if you're leaving for the season, it's probably a good idea to shut off the water to the inside of your home, or turn everything off behind, toilets, sinks, stuff like that, just to help, we want to keep you in business, but we also want to take good care of our clients. So,
So the big issue with the water is going to be hidden water or seepage and leakage. Those are the 2 terms that they use in the insurance industry. So that's anything inside the house, typically underneath the sink, behind a washer and dryer, water heater, stuff like that. There are companies now that sell the sensors that will turn everything off for you, and companies are leaning towards that in the future. I think it's going to be something that's going to be mandatory in about 5 to 10 years, especially with a lot of the snowbirds that we have.
That's a good idea.
So if you have this as a secondary residence, I'm almost positive that's going to be something in the future that's going to be required by these insurance companies. Is it a great option? I think so. It's a great option to have it in there just in case something happens, because most of our snowbirds, they don't have people checking on the homes, and so you don't find out till months later. And at that point, the insurance company come in and say, hey, this is a negligent loss, and then they'll pull back and they won't allow you to file the claim, or they'll deny the claim. So that's another reason we ask, like, hey, you might want to look into something like this. It's not required, but it's an option.
Right. The other, and then you had mentioned kind of floodplains and so forth. So we'll have on screen for you here where you can check to see if a particular home is in a floodplain. We also provide for our buyers a document that's called the Buyer Advisor. It gives you links where you can look up crime statistics, sex offenders, flood zones, airplane traffic, all of those kind of things, so that you can really be educated on the particular home. Now, these are a lot of things that you want to do during your due diligence period. Secure that home, get that locked up, but not all homes are in flood areas. I see a lot of these floodplains like in the Cave Creek area, out in Queen Creek. You see some out in certain areas of Buckeye. So there's one little pocket in Surprise, like right on the border of North Peoria. There's some floodplains there. A lot of these subdivided communities will actually do all their grading ahead of time when they're doing the whole layout of the communities. So even though they're coming off of mountains, they'll put in the proper drainage, and they'll do. That's why you'll see kind of like tiered streets where the houses kind of go down. They've already taken this into account and gotten rid of the requirement for flood insurance, but it's still an option. People can still, like, I have flood insurance on my home right now, but I'm not in a flood zone. But because of the way that my yard is and my home sits a little bit lower, I just figured, hey, you know what? It's not that much. Do you remember how much mine is a year? It was like
a couple $100. Usually it's about that $200 to $500 range.
Yeah, it wasn't very much. So, it's more of peace of mind for me, because typical homeowners insurance would not be covered if it was a storm flooding into your home.
Flooding would not cover.
Right. Important to know. Now in Arizona, we do have kind of like a clay and caliche in our soil. And so what happens is when it rains, the water doesn't go down real easy. So it kind of sits up and creates floods. So we have washes, and those washes can fill up. So a lot of these areas that are more rural, or not in a subdivided area, they really can get more of those washes and more of those floods. You see it a lot out in the New River area. So that is something to just keep in mind. Desert Hills has a lot of them too. So I'm sure I'm leaving out some of them, but these are where I see them more often, is kind of in these rural areas or areas that aren't a true master planned community. Yeah. All right. And so as far as what type of insurance that the average homeowner gets, like what is that baseline policy, and then what are some of the bells and whistles that they can add on?
Okay. So the state of Arizona, obviously we're a little bit different than most places because of the dry. Like I said, the two main perils that we need to look for are the wind and hail. The replacement costs on roof is one of the big ones. If your home has asphalt shingles and you're looking about that 20-year mark for replacing, most companies will drop you down into a lower tier, and that's called payment schedule. And the payment schedule is 70% minus depreciation. So if your roof's worth $100,000, 70%, you're only at $70,000, and then over the year's time, it's lowering that dollar amount. Now, roofs aren't that expensive, but kind of give you an idea of what it would be. So those I highly suggest against. Like, we don't like payment schedules because in the end, you're going to pay out, and they're only going to pay you monthly until it's paid off. So that's a big one we want to look for. The other thing is going to be the seepage and leakage I talked to. That we want to add additional coverage on there. Typically, we start at that $20,000 mark because that's kind of where we see our claims are around. I would say on average about $15,000 is what we're looking at. So we want to do at least 20 to get you above, just in case it's something major, or we'll go to 25 depending on the carrier. Most of my policies I like to start at 25,000 just because you never know what happens.
Right.
I don't want something to happen where you come in and you're like, hey, I'm out $30,000 and I got to pay my deductible and an additional $5,000. I'd rather pay it up front because that cost is going to be very minimal between that 20 and 25,000 up front. Those are the two big ones we look at. Obviously, the replacement costs and the seepage and leakage, those are the two other ones. The other one's going to be personal property protection. So any of the property in your house, if you take your house, shake it, and everything falls out, that's personal property. That's your refrigerators and everything like that. That coverage we want replacement costs also, not RCV or a lower dollar amount. That way it covers the exact cost to get it back to you, not minus depreciation.
Okay.
So those are the things you got to look at. That's something you ask your agent, like, hey, I want to be fully covered and I want everything to be replaced if something does happen. Because typically when you call us, it's the worst day of your life, right? Your house is gone, or a flood hits and wipes you out, or you have a $35,000 hit and you're asking yourself, how do I pay for this? These are the things we want to do up front and get ahead of these things, so it's a little bit cheaper and it's a little bit easier. And that way when you do call me, it's like, okay, we have these coverages set up. We make the call to claims, we'll get the claim going, and then in the next couple months, it'll be taken care of, you're good to go, and we'll move from there.
Perfect. Yeah, and this great explanation about like picking up and just dumping everything out, because a lot of people don't think about everything, they just think about just the house.
Yeah.
So that's huge. I want to remind you guys that Zach has access to a lot of different policies. So what he's going to do is have a conversation with you and then give you different options and be able to find a policy that's going to work best and a provider that's going to work best for you. So in the insurance business, do they call that being a broker? Or
It's all on brokerage.
Yeah. So his own brokerage, and he can shop what's going to be the best policy for you. I know that's what you did for me,
Yes.
and it's great. So if you want to reach out to Zach and have a conversation, feel free to do that. We will have Zach's information on screen, and go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We'll have more videos with Zach here, and we would love to be able to help you with your new purchase out here in the Phoenix area. Maybe you live in one location and you're moving to another. You can reach out to us for that as well. Again, I'm a Valley native. I've been selling real estate here in the Valley since 2001. So whether you are looking to sell a home or buy a home in Phoenix, please feel free to reach out. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks, guys. And if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up if you found any of the information useful here. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel and click that little bell at the top. That way you are notified when we put up new videos. Until next time, bye-bye.